What's up, everybody? Today, we're going to be talking about Trey Lance versus Brock Purdy and who the 49ers should roll with next year. Now, I actually think that their strengths and their weaknesses are a little bit more similar than some people think they are. I think that some people paint me as a Brock Purdy or a 49ers hater. I'm not. I'm just a bit of a Trey Lance fan, so maybe that spoils the video. But without further ado, let's get into the tape, and I'll kind of give my opinions on where they both are as players and who I would roll with moving forward and why. I know it seems unfair because the Bay Area already had the Warriors, but I think developing a good quarterback is the key to the 49ers being like the dynasty of the 2020s, the team that we look back on and say like, oh yeah, those 2020 49ers, no one could beat them, because it's just so easy for them. And they do it using, pretty basic concepts, right? Getting under center. Well, this is kind of a weird look. They're under center with no real back in the backfield here. But they get under center, they run play action, and then you've got like Deebo Samuel in the slot. He's running something kind of underneath. All right, that you got to respect him. So these linebackers come up, and then there's like a dagger concept behind that, right? Where someone is running a clear out, and then there's all this green grass for an athlete like Ayuk to run into, right? You see Deebo like blocking for a second and then releasing out. That holds these intermediate players, and then both of these players are flying upfield. You don't know who's going to break in, and the safety's got to respect that speed, so they all back up, and it just creates so much space. And these Seahawks linebackers in this game, I mean, they weren't sticking to anyone. People were just completely wide open all day, and you got to credit Brock Purdy when it comes to hitting them, right? It's not a free throw down there at the intermediate areas of the field, but it's pretty damn close. It's pretty damn close. Here it is again. They're going to fake that outside handoff with Deebo Samuel, get the linebackers flowing this way, and then this time it's Ayuk running that clear out, and it's Kittle running that intermediate dig. And as linebackers, I mean, there's no tougher assignment, because here's your running back who's also a wide receiver. Here's your fullback who's also a tight end. Here's your tight end who's also an offensive tackle and a wide receiver. Here's your wide receiver who's also a running back. Like, it's just tough to trust your eyes or know where the ball is going. And then once they dress it up and put that eye candy on, they're going to say, okay, well, after all that, can you get your wits about you and make a play in a lot of space? And like Cody Barton and Tanner Muse on this day couldn't do anything of this sort. Check out the gravity of McCaffrey in the running game here. All right, watch Ryan Neal rotating down into the box, and then they're going to fake the toss right there. And at about this point, it's pretty clear that they did not actually toss it to McCaffrey. But watch Neal. He continues to pursue McCaffrey for like 2 seconds after it should be clear that he doesn't have the ball, because it just messes with their brains. It just breaks the defender's brains playing this scheme. Now you've got Deebo Samuel running across the field. There's no one to turn and run with him because the safety's not in position anymore, and he's just wide the hell open. You make the throw, and then he picks up 65 yards of yards after catch. And I think the 49ers wide receivers averaged 10 yards after the catch every time they touch the football in this game. And that's kind of why it's hard to trust the box score when it comes to these 49ers quarterbacks, because, like, for example, we all know that Jimmy Garoppolo has his limitations, but the guy is the 6th most efficient quarterback since 2010, and the 5 dudes above him are the, 5 best quarterbacks of all time. He's above some names like, Burrow and Rivers and Romo and, Wilson, like Hall of Fame guys, Roethlisberger, and he's above them all because he just plays in this scheme. Now, the main problem with Garoppolo is he's a coward, all right? He doesn't want to get hit. He doesn't want to throw interceptions. He doesn't want to push the ball down the field. And then, of course, there was that throw to Ayuk at the end. On this play, there's going to be more play action developing this way, trying to get these guys to flow downhill and then to the opposite side of the field that all these crossing routes are developing in. But this time, once Purdy fakes it and bootlegs out, the Seahawks actually do a pretty good job roboting, turning backwards, finding these crossing routes from Ayuk and Deebo, and actually meeting them and taking them away, something that they weren't able to do all day. But on this particular look, there's really not much there. So Purdy gets creative. he reverses field, even though there are really no eligibles over here. He reverses field. He knows that in scramble drill mode, someone will work across the field and meet him over there. Ayuk is doing it. Purdy sees that he'll be open in the corner of the end zone. He makes a guy miss and then throws to that spot under pressure, takes a hit. It's a dime, right? And that kind of creativity is not happening with Jimmy Garoppolo, that's for sure. Like a lot of the top out-of-structure players in the league today, Purdy has a baseball background, and he's able to kind of whip some throws in there from untraditional bases and arm angles, and you see him do that a lot more often than Jimmy G would. An infusion of playmaking has elevated this offense, and it's really cool that that has come from the last selection of the NFL draft. However, it's great that he's better at that stuff than Garoppolo is, but it's not really a debate between him and Garoppolo, and it's not really a reason to start him over Lance, because I think everybody can agree that Lance has the higher ceiling as like an out-of-structure playmaker, right? I don't think anybody's going to sit here and argue that Lance isn't the bigger, stronger, faster athlete who can make a little bit more happen, you know, when the play breaks down. It's the polish that comes into question with Lance, because this play, for example, it's great that he's scrambling around, keeping his eyes up, finding Ayuk for the first down here, but at the same time, when he hits the top of his drop and he's looking to his left here, these two slants are both open, and he could just throw that and make it way easier on himself, right? So he definitely has a lot of work to do as a pure pocket passer. On this play, I mean, Lance completely stares down this slant. From the moment he gets the ball, he's looking at it, looking at it, looking at it, looking at it. Makes it pretty easy for Eddie Jackson, who's rotating down, to rob this throw, steps right in front of it, because this was never going to be anything else. I also think he only kind of has one throw in his bag, and that's the line drive, right? The laser beam, when sometimes it would make more sense to put arc on the throw and let a wide open guy run under it, right? But he always just kind of throws it as hard as he can. It gives him a lot less room for error, and he has some footwork issues as well, and that has created accuracy issues for him so far in his career, and even dating back to college. Another good example of this is a pick that Lance threw in his second start last year, week 17 against the Texans. There's going to be play action developing to this side. Kittle's going to pretend like he's blocking, and then once the play action is revealed and Lance rolls out, he's going to kind of sneak behind the defense and run up the opposite sideline. So he's going to leak up there. And what you're hoping to get is, after the play action and the rollout, everybody's like, uh-oh, you know, we're all going to fly to this side of the field now, because usually when they cut the field in half like this on a rollout, the ball 99% of the time is going over here. So they're hoping to get everybody to flow that way after the rollout. Kittle sneaks behind everyone, and then you dial up that shot play to him. That's what they're hoping happens here. But Lance doesn't really execute this play well at all, right? He sells the play action, but instead of rolling out this way and causing the flow that way to get Kittle open, he just kind of stops and immediately looks right at Kittle. So no one is confused here, right? Kittle's still kind of pretending to run that drag before cutting up field here, and the Texans are all over that, and then he throws it directly to him. And even once he messes up kind of the design of the play, Kittle does have some separation over the top, I think, right there. Like if you loft that thing up in front of him, like perfectly, then he still has a chance to make the play, I think, right? Like if you were to get this a little bit higher and towards the sideline, he might be able to run under that before the safety gets there. But again, it's just too on a line, and the safety who knows that it's coming now, or this corner who knows that it's coming, is just able to make an easy play on this. So I'm definitely not here to say like Lance is a amazing pocket presser. You all need to bow down to how technically refined he is. No, he definitely has a long way to go, which is to be expected since he's so inexperienced. With that being said, I think that Lance has shown some really promising traits as a pocket passer and is a little better in that area than some give him credit for. And I think that Brock Purdy is a little bit worse in that area than some give him credit for. And Purdy may still be better as a pure pocket passer, but the gap, the gulf, is not nearly as large as some people make it out to be. And I think not only does Lance have a bigger ceiling as a creator out of structure because he's so athletic, but I also think he's pretty clearly got a better ceiling as a pocket passer and winning just within structure. So I know, because he's done it multiple times, that he's good enough to hit the wide open dig routes that this San Francisco offense generates so frequently. Here you're going to see another example of that intermediate crossing route, and this time the Bears realize what's about to happen. Eddie Jackson sees Lance looking that way, and he turns and starts to sprint back to meet, I think that's Ray McCloud, and Lance is able to launch that thing in there over the outstretched hands of Roquan Smith, and before Eddie Jackson can get to his spot and throw a really nice pass down the field on one of those. Multiple times in his short stint at quarterback, Lance has made throws with perfect timing and anticipation. So like on this play, Ayuk is running an out route, but the corner starts with outside leverage. Ayuk kind of breaks that. Now the corner has inside leverage, so Lance is good to throw that out route. He reads that in the time that he drops back, hits the top of his drop, drives that back foot before Ayuk is broken. He's like on the pointer of the 40 here, and throws that thing right as Ayuk is breaking. By the time Ayuk turns around, the ball's already most of the way there. Bang. Like, this is perfect timing. Now, the ball placement isn't quite perfect here. It's a little bit too far inside. Ayuk has to kind of turn his shoulders and catch this with his body behind him. You'd like to see this towards the sideline. And I think that inconsistent accuracy, once again, comes from footwork. He's taken his drop here, and his first step backwards is too big, I think. Right, he's getting too much depth on that first step, and then that second step when he hits the top of his drop, he kind of has to overcorrect and be a little bit more narrow than he would like to be, I think. But footwork aside and the ball placement aside, the timing is so good, and he's got such a powerful arm to push it back there that even though the throw is too far inside, it gets there soon enough that the defensive back can't recover. So it's really tantalizing to think, how unstoppable that throw would be if he gets his feet better. Similar deal here. Lance hits the top of his drop, realizes that this is man coverage. A good man beater here is going to be this deep fade on the rookie playing in his first NFL game, Kyler Gordon. And Gordon is not in great position here. His feet are kind of crossed up as I think that's Jauan Jennings cuts this outside and upfield. Lance knows that Gordon is not going to be able to recover here, that there is going to be separation, even though there is not yet. So before Jauan Jennings passes Gordon up, before he's obviously open, Lance is going to take one hitch, plant that back foot in the ground, and throw this downfield. He hits Jennings in stride, but as Jennings kind of transitions into a runner here, he stumbles a little bit and gets tackled. But once again, recognizing when things are open before they're visibly open, that's always good. This is quarterbacking at the highest level, ripping this thing up the seam with anticipation in a tight window, hits his guy in the hands, but he drops it. And this is really, really difficult. This is, again, something that's attacking the middle of the field, like this double posts. But the Cardinals are putting proper depth in their defense. There's no play action or anything here that the linebackers are biting down on and creating tons of open space in the middle, right? They're getting depth and making this a really tough throw. Now, there's two things you can do. There's two posts, like I said. You can either hit the inside one where this safety is probably driving down. You're going to have to layer it over this defender, and this guy can probably come off his man if he's reading your eyes and break on that as well. So the ball would probably have to be placed perfectly right there, or you can hit the other one in behind him and rip it up over this defender and before 34 breaks on it right here. And Lance, right, he hits the top of his drop, climbs the pocket. Right here, he starts his throwing motion. This is just starting to break. He's hitting this in a window where this wide receiver is not yet. So he throws it in between these two into this throwing lane with a lot of velocity, whips his lower body and puts a lot of juice on this thing to get it into that window. Bang. A great throw, great anticipation, good aggressiveness to attack a closing window. And I mean, if you can do this consistently, you turn into an all-pro, right? So I like his flashes of anticipation, and I also like his flashes of toughness and his willingness to hang in a pocket, all right? He doesn't do it all the time. Sometimes he bails a bit too early, but there are times where there's like a free rusher off the edge, right? This defensive back, he's hot. This is his all-out blitz. He knows he's probably going to take a hit here, but he hangs in there, right? Because he's big and the defensive back is small. I feel like Purdy, this is one where he maybe turns around and tries to escape, right? Pirouetting and turning his back to the defense and running backwards. And maybe he makes the guy miss. Purdy's good at that. But, it's not as efficient as just standing in there, because you're bigger than this guy. I don't care if I take a hit. I'm going to step into this throw, right? They're playing cover 0. This is going to be open towards the sideline. He puts enough juice on it that it gets there before this other defender can come off his assignment and maybe make a play on it. Bang, first down. Really nice job hanging in there against the pressure and making the correct throw. I don't want you to pay attention to the results of this play. I want you to pay attention to the process, all right? Because this is another one of those intermediate routes over the middle of the field. The linebackers, the rookie Zaven Collins doesn't get enough depth, so Debo's going to be open here. It should be easy, but as Lance hits the top of his drop, both of the edge rushers for the Cardinals are winning on this play, and they're about to sandwich him, right? He's about to get crushed. And a lot of young quarterbacks would see this. They would have no interest in stepping up into this pocket knowing they could take a hit. They would want to bail. They'd want to outrun J.J. Watt to the sideline or something and maybe throw it away or run out of bounds for a short gain or something. They don't want to take this hit. But Lance, he knows that this is going to be open. Collins doesn't have enough depth. Debo is running that route into all this space. So he's like, screw it. I know I'm going to take a hit, but I'm going to climb this pocket right here and launch this thing. Right? Pretty good anticipation there, right? Beginning kind of the motion of the throw, just as Debo Samuel is breaking, stepping up into a crowded pocket, willing to take a hit, but it gets batted. So, while Purdy has done some really good things, right? He's been more aggressive than Garoppolo. He's pushed the ball down the field, right? He's found guys on the backside, Ayuk on the backside. He's found his check down on the backside. He's done some cool stuff with his eyes, like on this play here, right? They're going to run just like flat slant, and he's initially looking directly at that flat, right, influencing these defenders, and then throwing damn near a no-look pass into this window to Brandon Ayuk, right? These are some high-level stuff that is super impressive for a 7th-round pick. But I think some people get so caught up in Purdy's story, and they look at the box score and they don't see anything wrong, that they ignore the fact that this guy's a project too, all right? This guy's not a pristine pocket passer at this point either. And his biggest problem, I think, is running himself into pressure. Takes a snap here. Raiders are only rushing 3. Really good job. A great pocket. You can stay balanced. Just kind of hop around back there, right? Maybe maneuver yourself slightly into these windows, but nothing too crazy. You don't have to take off and run. And if you do take off and run, take off through this gap here where you're guaranteed to pick up yards in the shadow of your own end zone, right? But what he does is he's not really balanced here. As soon as he feels any kind of pressure, he just takes off and runs, and he has no platform to throw from here. He could just kind of slide this way, and he doesn't step up and run to the green grass. He runs right into Cleveland Farrell, right? And then risks taking a sack, a safety, or risks, throwing this away and getting an intentional grounding in his own end zone, which would also be a safety. So running himself into pressure is something I've noticed that he does way too much. This is probably the most egregious example. George Kittle is running this bender up the middle of the field, and it looks like the safety, Ryan Neal, is expecting inside help over top, and that's kind of why he lets him run right by him with heavy outside leverage. But this safety's not giving him that. This safety is running towards the sideline. So Kittle is wide open with leverage if you just throw this anywhere over here. And Kittle knows it, right? He's throwing up his hand, throw it to me, right? We saw Lance in that Chicago game. Maybe the guy wasn't quite wide open yet, but he knew he was going to be, and he threw it out in front of him and he hit him, right? That's kind of a similar deal here. Maybe George Kittle isn't completely wide open right now, but if you do this with anticipation from a literal perfect pocket, you can score a touchdown pretty easily here. But instead, Purdy freaks out. He starts running backwards and throws this away. Now, I'm not saying Lance always makes the right decision. Of course, Lance invites pressure on himself and holds the football a little bit too long. But I've also seen more reps of Lance standing in a strong pocket, throwing with anticipation. He's got the better arm. He can drive it outside the numbers better than Purdy can. I think that he is more willing to stand in the pocket than Purdy is. And if you're going to choose a guy who's pro, he's a little bit more of a playmaker than Garoppolo was, right? He's a little bit more aggressive than Garoppolo was, raises the ceiling of the offense a little bit more than Garoppolo. That is both what makes Purdy good and Lance good, but they both have downsides, which maybe the release isn't as quick as Garoppolo. Maybe they don't read things out just as well or anything like that. But if both of these two guys kind of have similar strengths and weaknesses a little bit, why not go with the guy who has a undisputably higher ceiling, the guy who is super huge, and you can design the quarterback run game with him, and you traded up all these picks to pick him third? Again, you can't mess this up. if you're them. You have a chance to become a dynasty. You have a chance to be the Super Bowl favorites every year with Kyle Shanahan and these skill position talents and all of that, and a good quarterback. Like, who would bet, and that defense, like, who would bet against you? That dynasty only happens if Lance becomes the player they drafted him to be. Purdy is already the player they drafted him to be, and way more. But Lance could grow to that Josh Allen level player, and who is beating the 49ers if that happens? It's a chance you got to take, in my opinion. And again, I want to give Purdy credit for what he's doing, right? It's never been done before. It's historical, but I think some people just get so blinded by the story. They treat him like a Make-A-Wish kid at Disneyland, where if you say like, hey man, that game wasn't very good, or hey, like these traits, he's not elite at these things yet, right? These things need a lot of work to get to that upper echelon of quarterback play, right? You say those things about Purdy and everyone's like, dude, you can't say that about him. He's a 7th round pick. You can't say that about him. But it's time to hold him to the standard of a quarterback on a Super Bowl hopeful, okay? And does he have the juice to get him all the way? And to me right now, I'm not quite sure that he does. And I think not only do some people kind of overrate Purdy's story, they also underrate Lance's flashes. And I think that they're like, again, it's a tough decision right now because I think they're both even Purdy might be a little bit ahead of Lance, right, when you look at the tape. I really do believe that, but it's not by much. And Lance's ceiling is just so much higher that I think you got to roll with him, which is, I've said that a million times. I'm just reiterating it to close this thing out. And speaking of closing this thing out, it's over. Thank you all for watching this week. Let me know in the comments what you'd like to see in the future, of course. And I'll see you next Wednesday for another All 22 review. Thank you.